It's so nice to see Titanfall 2 receiving the attention and praise it's deserved for 4 years. The game finally picked up steam after releasing on Steam. Released in 2016, Titanfall 2 is a team-based FPS that is both a fast-paced movement shooter and a slower-paced mech fighter. Upon launch, the game received critical praise, but suffered in the video game equivalent of a box office due to its poorly timed release window, lackluster marketing, and limited platform distribution, as the PC version initially only existed on EA's Origin. At the time, Origin was an obscure and relatively unpopular platform, since its gimmick was only EA games. The obscure launch mixed with little to no advertising, and a release window set between Battlefield and Call of Duty set the game up for a financial failure. However, in 2020, Titanfall 2 was put up on a much more popular Steam platform, which gave more people a chance to discover the masterful movement shooter, resulting in an increased player base and more current-day praise. Admittedly, I was one of the many that sat on this game for a few years. Initially, I wasn't interested due to the seemingly heavy emphasis on Titan gameplay, a format that kinda went against what I enjoyed. While I did inevitably end up favoring pilots over Titans in the end, hot damn did I miss out on Titanfall 2. The overall experience, both single and multiplayer, are fantastic due in part to the gameplay. It's the definition of fluidity. Running and gunning are seamlessly smashed together, creating a satisfying, adrenaline-pumping gameplay. This is the game that gives you a chance to pull off extremely satisfying stuff like this. Or embarrassing things such as this. Oh, that's death! Titanfall 2's gameplay is all about mastering its fast-paced movement and integrating it with the gunplay. If you get that right, you can start pulling off extravagant plays like the example I just showed. I meant the other clip! But you need a place to learn the controls so you don't get your face stomped in by veterans who never touch the ground. And the single-player campaign is the perfect place to do that. But I don't necessarily mean the campaign as a whole. I'm talking about the Pilot's Gauntlet. This is the beginning of a masterpiece. Taking place during the Frontier Wars, the player takes control of Jack Cooper, a rifleman in the militia, voiced by the most popular Joach and the infamous Nunist. Cooper is a pilot in training, and the Pilot's Gauntlet takes place inside a training simulator, controlled by his mentor and seasoned pilot Captain Lastimosa. Titanfall 2's campaign boasts one of the most masterfully crafted tutorials in an FPS, especially one which boasts a pretty high skill ceiling. With the time to kill so low, standing still or camping is a surefire way to mark yourself for death. Running and gunning is the name of the game, and the Gauntlet is a fantastic introduction to both the gameplay and the campaign. The Gauntlet gives players of all skill levels a great introduction. It starts off with the bare-bone basics of FPS moving and shooting, which is great to players entirely new to the genre and playstyle. However, seasoned players can also speed through this portion if it's something they don't need and the game doesn't punish you by artificially slowing you down. The player controls the pace, not the game. The beauty of this tutorial is that the players are urged to take their time by Lastimosa.
Practice more if you want, then head to the Gauntlet.
At this point in the story, there's no sense of urgency. Cooper and Lastimosa are simply waiting to reach their ship's destination and are taking advantage of the wait to give Cooper a chance to see what it's like with pilot gear. It's not until the actual Gauntlet is introduced that everything comes together, and players are introduced to how the game is really meant to be played. The Gauntlet is a timed course where the goal is not only to speed through it as speedily as you can, but also take out the stationary targets in order to get a good time. This is the perfect way to show the player running and gunning are two inseparable elements that are necessary to mastering this game, and that standing still is the perfect way to die. Even though the Gauntlet is timed, Lastimosa still urges the player to take their time and retry the course as many times as they want. There's no real sense of pressure or urgency. The Gauntlet is treated like a game. Try to get your best time, but if you don't want to keep trying, then no sweat, feel free to continue on. The campaign starts off on an unexpected high note, and it only gets better from there. Even though the second mission in the campaign acts as an extension of the tutorial, It's still a well-designed level that begins to show players that each level has its own distinct identity. The level themes in this game range from slumming through the sewers of a treatment facility to, my personal favorite, running through a factory that builds towns, to hopping between ships that are speeding across the planet. Titanfall 2's campaign is nothing short of variety. The distinction between even just the level concepts alone help make it so that the campaign doesn't feel repetitive. It keeps you on your toes with its constantly shifting environments that allow for different level designs and some fantastic set pieces. Seriously, just look at some of these. However, the different environments also force different platforming elements. For instance, hopping across construction cranes won't merit the same design and platforms as you'd see across speeding cruisers. By switching up the areas, the level design naturally follows along. This is further exemplified when unique mechanics are introduced into each level. Looking differently isn't the only thing the levels pull off. They also play differently, all while still keeping to the two core types of gameplay. After the second mission, every single level introduces a mechanic unique to only that level. Whether this be a gameplay element or a mechanic, each level is made even more distinct with unique elements. Effect and Cause introduces Cooper to a time manipulation device that is only usable in the dilapidated facility he's searching through, as that area is riddled with time distortion issues due to an incident that is critical to the campaign's story. The effect is first introduced outside of the player's control, getting them familiar with how the element functions before giving them control of the hopping. With this device, the player is able to switch between past and present on the fly, allowing them to bunny hop by some very confused scientists. The mechanic allows the level to play around with some unique puzzles that are exclusively tied to the device, all while integrating them into the fast-paced nature of the pilot gameplay. On the other hand, a mission like Blood and Rust sees Cooper getting trapped in a flow regulation chamber where he's forced to survive a constant wave of enemies while he waits to reunite with BT. Aside from the fact that the level introduces these devil spawns, known as ticks, it's the only solo survival segment of a level. Some missions introduce special events as opposed to mechanics manipulatable by the player, which further helps dispel the monotony. Into the Abyss has one of the antagonists trap Cooper in a testing area to fight off waves of enemy. While both events are similar in idea, Blood and Rust sees Cooper frantically running around a room evading the enemies, while Into the Abyss doesn't. Especially on harder difficulties, Blood and Rust forces players to evade as opposed to destroy due to the sheer number of hazards it throws at you. Trying to fight them without zooming is a one-way ticket to the pain train. Fighting isn't the tactic here, but Into the Abyss's segment is. Additionally, Into the Abyss sees Cooper getting help from fellow imprisoned militia expendables, who help him gun down the newly introduced Reapers. Oh, not that Reaper, but it wouldn't matter. This Matt Mercer character can also take them down with ease. That's actually another thing. A lot of elements that are present in the multiplayer are introduced in the campaign. Ticks, Reapers, cloaking are all featured within the campaign. While there is definitely a lot that isn't showcased, specifically in the tactical abilities department, the campaign works as a great basis to everything players deal with in multiplayer, aside from real players. Of course, there are several gameplay elements that are exclusive to the campaign. While it is unfortunate that we aren't able to experience these elements outside of their levels, as more missions with the time distortion function has the potential to fill its own game, the short length of the levels and the campaign actually works to its advantage. A common criticism of the campaign, and the most universally agreed, is that it's too short. Clocking in at around 3 to 4 hours on a casual playthrough, the campaign can be easily completed in one session. But the reason the level-specific elements work so well are because they are confined to just one level. Not only does it, again, keep up the variation presented throughout the whole campaign, but it also means that if there's an element you aren't particularly fond of, you only have to suffer through one level with it before it's gone forever. If you don't like the functionality of, say, the arc tool, then you only have to suffer through using it in one level. Additionally, elements like the arc tool and time manipulator are used liberally throughout their levels, giving players ample time to fiddle with them, but because of how they're confined, they never feel like they overstay their welcome. This campaign lacks repetition, and that's a great thing, especially for a story that has a high sense of urgency laden throughout it. If it wasn't obvious at this point, story spoilers ahead. I know I've essentially spoiled some elements already, but this section actually has plot spoilers. The story is what ties everything together. While I do personally believe the story as a whole is the weakest aspect, as it basically devolves into obtaining the MacGuffin then stopping the MacGuffin, it still provides the glue that binds the levels, pushes forward the character development, and is well told regardless. Cooper is thrust into a pilot position after Lastimosa passes from fatal wounds in the second mission. He is given control of BT-7274, who ends up being the crux of the story's emotional impact. Heavy focus is put on not just the connection between a pilot and his Titan due to a neural link that must be formed, but specifically Cooper and BT's relationship. Throughout the campaign, BT and Cooper come to be more than just a pilot and his disposable mech. This is strengthened through two things: his classification and their dialogue. BT is classified as a Vanguard Titan, which denotes that he emphasizes survivability over expendability. In the Titanfall world, newer Titans are deemed more expendable and are made more carelessly, with little focus given to the bond between pilot and Titan. BT and his AI are older models, therefore the bond is a much more important thing to him functioning at full capacity. Even though BT is a combat AI, the writers still managed to give him a lot of personality. This is most easily seen through the banter between him and Cooper that goes on throughout the entire campaign, which the player is given just a tiny bit of control on. The progression of their relationship is shown through actions on both parties and how they speak to each other. A great way the writers do this is with how BT refers to Cooper. Initially, Cooper is referred to the simple title of Pilot or Pilot Cooper, since that's the formal way BT's AI signifies him as. As the two's relationship continues to strengthen, BT begins calling him by just his name more frequently, showing that despite his AI nature, he has come to recognize Cooper as more than just his pilot, but rather his partner and friend. I'd say there's quite a few important events in the campaign that show their bond growing. Cooper trusting BT to hurl him over increasingly more dangerous bottomless pits, BT defending Cooper when Briggs tries to relieve Cooper of his unofficial pilot duties.
Objection. Cooper is my pilot.
And BT sacrificing himself to keep Cooper safe, twice. The ending of the mission, The Ark, sees BT going against Cooper's orders to leave him in order to get the Ark out. Instead,
Protocol 3. I will not lose another pilot.
Protecting Cooper during the crash instead. This action leads to the final mission of the game, which ends up being a thrilling culmination of everything that's led up to it.
Excuse me.
Final mission, the fold weapon.
Excuse me, hello.
What?
Were those my Max Boxes clips you used at 1 minute 36 seconds and 2 minute 08 seconds?
Yes. I clearly credited you, Mr. Box. See?
Wait, but that's nothing.
It's not nothing. It's exposure.
Exposure? You want to see exposure?
Oh god, no, my monetization!
Alright, Titan. You're gonna open up and give me what I want.
The Draconis has crashed. You and BT are captured and are in the belly of the beast. Unable to retrieve the Ark from BT, Blisk threatens Jack's life. BT sends a message to you telling you to trust him and makes a Hail Mary move by exposing the Ark as bait. But Blisk pulls some absolutely bonkers moves and escapes. The Ark is extracted and you watch helplessly as BT gets brutally terminated in front of your eyes. Is this the end?
Cooper, over here.
Suddenly, BT's still alive, but clearly not for long. For all the player knows, they're saying goodbye. BT tells us to use the Seer Kit before going offline, which introduces you to the Smart Pistol, an unbelievably powerful gun that automatically locks onto enemies, and other players in multiplayer, so that's fun. You grab BT's core, hack the terminal, start running, and then BOOM! Grunts you've run into earlier in the game likely didn't pose too strong of a challenge, but once you acquire the Smart Pistol, you rise to the level of a god. The carnal catharsis you feel as you let your rage over your lost friend flare is like none other I've felt in a video game. Bang bang as your enemies die, mowing them down pack by pack, you make your way around the fold weapon, seeing the gargantuan scale of the megastructure and setting the scene for the rest of the level to come. Now, compare this to the Call of Duty mission Death from Above.
Nail those guys. Nail those guys by the building.
I'm bored. Yeah, pop, 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 pop. Then you jump off that, do a 6 slide under the door right before it closes, jump off the wall, pop, pop, get those two guys, run under the wall like, look at this! I mean, this is possibly the least boring pop, pop, the least boring game ever, pop, pop, and then you go up there, pop, pop, this is good, you gotta get this game right now, it's on sale probably, go buy it right now. Suddenly we're told that we have a Titan ready, we slam the button down, hear the distinct roar of the Titan as it falls, and... it's not BT. You may have survived, but BT is gone. Now you're gonna have to learn a whole new Titan and get to know them and have good, witty back and forth as well. And it's just gonna be a whole hullabaloo. And oh my god, it's BT!
Hello, Jack.
Glad to have you back in one piece, BT.
Over 25,000, actually. BT-7274 online and ready for combat.
This is the best freaking game ever.
It is time to complete our mission.
Oh my god, you gotta get it. Okay, that's my 2 cents on my favorite part of this campaign. Goodbye!
Oh, thank God that's over. The rest of the mission takes place in Titan gameplay, as you fight your way through a facility full of IMC operatives and Titans. With the adrenaline-pumping action of the Smart Pistol completed, it's time to make your way to the Arc weapon and stop it from firing on the malicious home planet of Harmony. Arriving at the weapon, the players face the final boss of the game, Sloane, the second in command of the mercenaries hired by the IMC. After defeating her, Cooper and BT make their way to the weapon and mash buttons in order to try and disable it, but they are interrupted by a near-fatal shot by Blisk, which nearly destroys BT. However, Blisk departs from his Titan and decides not to kill off Cooper since he wouldn't be getting paid for doing it. The last thing he does before leaving is slap an Apex Predator's invitation on his viewport, signifying that Cooper had proven what it took to be a ruthless freelance pilot. Even though Cooper had been upholding the missions he had been thrusted into, there's no denying that he wasn't going around killing people. It is a war after all. Cooper killed all of Blisk's comrades, leaving him as the last of that group of Apex Predators. Oh, and countless foot soldiers. I don't know how many were stepped on like defenseless ants, but there were a lot. With Blisk gone, BT reboots his systems just enough to get back up and formulate a new plan. With no other options, BT realizes his core can be used as a bomb, so he climbs into the weapon and prepares to launch himself at the MacGuffin. Cooper reassures him he's with him to the end, accepting his fate for the sake of saving an entire planet and sticking with his friend. But at the last second...
Protocol 3. Protect the pilot.
BT, what are you doing?
Trust me.
BT!
Cooper, we just lost BT signal. We're almost there.
God damn it, how did this game make me almost cry at the death of a bot? BT went directly against Cooper's wishes and saved him from a grim fate. Being hurled into the equivalent of a black hole is probably agonizing. This moment was the peak of their relationship. Cooper was wanting to stick with BT, the Titan that had saved his and many other lives on multiple occasions. With BT gone, Cooper parkours himself through the final platforming gauntlet, an insanely cool set piece, into the safe hands of an evacuation ship where he gets away just before the planet is destroyed by the MacGuffin's destruction. The campaign ends with Cooper solemnly stating he's not sure he wants to be assigned a new Titan, but an end credits scene hints towards BT not being completely gone. The single-player campaign ends with a visual spectacle, a heart-wrenching moment, and your desk covered in tears. When the devs heard the criticism of the first game not having a campaign, they took it to heart, shot for the stars, and hit the jackpot. This campaign shows just how much the devs improved from the faults of the first, and that was only one aspect of criticism rectified. The Titanfall 2 campaign is a wonderful experience from start to finish. With unique levels, mechanics, and a wonderful relationship between a man and his murder machine, this campaign will go down as one of the best FPS campaigns of all time. If Titanfall 3 can be what the first game was to the second, then I'm excited to see how they continue to improve on a franchise that has so much potential in both world building and gameplay. Thanks to my Patreon donators, Dagobago, Moeka Kiru, Julian Arnott, Sean O'Mani, That Monica, and Trinima. Special thanks to Damp Volcano 9204 for being my Patreon investor. You really help keep the channel going.